All right. So in the car business, there's a lot of ways to be successful and make money. And my way is to buy really nice trucks and make them even nicer and then sell them for a reasonable price. And through that process, I fix a lot of issues and clean up things and etc., 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 so that my customers get a top quality truck that's ready to go, last them a long time, and they're happy with their purchase. So on these L5Ps, a pretty common issue that most have, and this video may help somebody else, but pretty common issue that most of them have is the coolant tank sensor will go bad. And I will show you what that will look like when you crank the truck up. So it won't throw a check engine light or anything like that, but if you look here, it takes a second, but it's going to pop up, and it does it every time you crank the truck up. Coolant level low, add coolant, and when you go and you look, there's plenty of coolant in the truck. So unfortunately, I will show you where GM missed the mark on this in just a second, but it's fairly easy to fix, but it does require you to change the tank. Once you change the tank, it will be corrected. It will no longer be an issue. Now, for a lot of people, they'll just hit the dismiss button and they'll just keep driving it with no further issue until they crank the truck up again and it'll say it. But for me, I'm not going to sell a truck to a customer that has an issue like that. You know, I try to have everything A1 ready to go, front line ready, as they call it in our business. So now that I've showed you that, I'm going to turn the truck off and we're going to go check out the new part that I've got. So right here is the new coolant tank. Nothing special about it, you know, other than it's nice and shiny and looks new. But this sensor right here on the bottom, there's an internal mechanism there that feeds to this sensor, and it tells the system whether it has adequate coolant or not. And unfortunately, GM did not make this part removable so you could just replace the sensor. So you actually have to replace the entire assembly here. While it's not hard to do, unfortunately, you do have to spend about $70 or so, and I'll link the part number in the description. But you do have to spend about $70 or so on this part. And then you have 1, 2, and 3. So this little bolt right here is a little aggravating, but these two are easy. You also have to reuse your cap. It does not come with a cap. Now you have 2 hoses on top, pretty easy to remove. If it's been a while, it may be difficult to get those off, but not a big deal. And then down in here, you have the fitting, and you can use a screwdriver and pop that up and then pull this off. And then this, you can finesse and wiggle and get out. It's not a big deal. And then once out, you will just replace it with the new one. You'll plug your sensor in down there at the bottom, and then you will refill with coolant. Overfill it a little bit, let it flow back through, leave your cap open, and then you should be good to go. I'm gonna go ahead and knock that out, and then when I get through, I will show you some details of the little things, that kind of intricacies of doing this. But it's not difficult. Anybody can do it with pretty basic tools. All right, so we got the old tank out. Pretty easy to do. You know, pulled the top off of my my cover here, and just make sure you're careful to try not to get any fluid, or the least amount of fluid you can in there, because this shouldn't get wet. So you definitely want to make sure that that's good. And then you do have to do a little finessing right here to get it around that, but overall you can do it without removing any other parts. This little screw right here is kind of difficult to get out, but once you get it out, it's no problem. So now the first thing we're going to do, we're going to reinstall the plug here. Boom. Our whole issue was that plug. And then we're going to place this back in here. And like I said, you do have to do a little finessing to get this back in there. Little pushing and pulling and whatnot, but it'll fit back, as you can see. And then once you get it back on there, you'll come around, and this is your hose. And then, like I said, it just popped back in. But essentially, you just want to make sure that this clip right here is up, and then you'll fit that back on there, and then you'll pop your clip back in like so. And then you will do all three of your screws here, fill it up with fluid, plug these back in, put your cap on it. But you might get a little bit of air in the system, so definitely want to allow that to work its way out. And then once I have all this done, I'll show it to you completed, and then we'll go and make sure that that light does not come on anymore. Put a couple 100 miles on it, making sure it doesn't overheat or there's no issues, all the air's out of the system, and then this bad boy will be ready for market and for its new owner. All right, guys, so everything's installed. Got my 3 bolts back in, got my 2 overflows, and something you should note, that line right there is a minimum line, so I definitely filled it a little high, because I'm gonna let the truck run and get up to temperature, let any air that's in the system out, and then I'll put my cap back on, and then we will take it for a spin, make sure everything works like it's supposed to. But we're gonna go crank it up, and we're gonna make sure that that light doesn't come on, because that means what we did was successful. So let's crank up the truck and see what she says. There we go. And let's give her a minute. That hood is open. And typically about right now is when that light would come on, or that display would come on, and we are good to go. So now we're gonna let the truck run, get up to temperature, make sure all that air gets out of the system, and then she should be ready. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments. Glad to help any way I can. Thanks.